Hello, I'm Todd Stubendick, State Director for AARP Nebraska. Thank you for joining us for this special Facebook Live event. AARP has been working to promote the health and well-being of older Americans for more than 60 years through information, advocacy, and resources. Part of that includes helping to improve the places that we live so we can thrive no matter your age, ability, or background. We all want places to live where there are transportation options. Housing is affordable and works for our needs as we age. There's access to the outdoors. There are ways to stay connected with loved ones and neighbors. Ultimately, our vision for a future in which communities, urban, suburban, and rural, are all great places to live. We see this as even more important as we face the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. AARP is doing this work nationwide, including right here in Nebraska. Today, I'm pleased to share some exciting news, as 3 Nebraska organizations are receiving grants through the AARP Community Challenge Grant Program, our Livable Communities Grant Program. These are a part of a total of $2.4 million being awarded among 184 grantees across the country. Today, I'm excited to say, we're joined by one of the Nebraska grantees who's going to share more about their project. Lenita Carlock is joining us today from the Haigler Community Foundation. Welcome, Lenita, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Todd, and thank you for doing the broadcast. We are really excited to be more a part of our AARP family.
Perfect. Let's get started. First of all, could you tell us a little bit about the community of Haigler?
Well, yes, because maybe people don't know about Haigler. We are in the very, very southwest corner of the state, and we are called the cornerstone of Nebraska because it's in the very southwest corner. We are in the Republican River Valley. So we have beautiful sunrises and beautiful sunsets and lots of hunting and lots of fishing. And Highway 34, that used to be the Goldenrod Highway, runs right through Haigler.
What's the population of Haigler?
The population of Haigler is, at last census, 150 people. And so we are certainly a small rural farming and ranching community, but we are alive and well, unlike many small towns throughout the whole United States.
How far are you from the Kansas and Colorado borders?
We are only 1 mile from Kansas. In fact, you can even walk to Kansas. We are 7 miles from the Colorado state line. And that's why, Todd, so many times we refer to ourselves as the tri-state area, because our patrons, our customers, our donors, our support comes from the tri-state area of Kansas, Colorado, and Nebraska.
Very good. So the AARP Community Challenge Grant is for $5,000 and involves improvements to the Haigler Cornerstone Museum. Tell us more about the project itself and your plans.
Well, it was, I believe, April when the deadline was for submitting an AARP Challenge grant. And as we know, COVID-19 was getting full force in March, and we had to close things down. And we usually, Todd, have at least 12 annual events, one every month, for all of our communities. And so we had to close not only our events down so that we wouldn't be a spreader of the virus, but we had to close our community center as well. And so on the docket for this year was to do a remodeled restroom that would be American Disabilities compliant in our Cornerstone Museum, which is part of our Cornerstone Center complex, all of the museum complex. So we were thinking, how in the world are we going to do this? We have no income from any events. We need to pay all of our monthly bills. And then I had seen in the paper about the AARP Challenge Grant. And so we applied in April, and then we were still trying to figure out all of our monthly things with COVID. And it was July, and I got this email. Congratulations, you have been accepted for a $5,000 challenge grant. And we were so excited because that lets us continue on our projects. at least one of the most important ones, because in the Cornerstone Museum, it used to be an auto repair shop, and before that, it was a display building. Stan and I had owned it. We donated it to our Haigler Community Foundation because people kept donating things. And so it became the Cornerstone Museum about 6 years ago. And it has one tiny bathroom, one stool, one tiny sink, and if you were very big, you couldn't even get in that bathroom. And so the grant will enable us to do an ADA compliant, make all kinds of changes so that a wheelchair and anybody with any kind of disability will be able to use the restroom.
That's great. Part of a cornerstone of our Livable Communities work is making sure that all people have access to facilities like that, and that these facilities are available to us sort of as we age and as we need more accessibility. That's an important part of our Livable Communities work. So that's great. Tell us a little bit about the Cornerstone Museum. What, if people visit, when it's safe to visit, what would they see at the museum?
Well, we're a farming and ranching community. The Cornerstone Museum evolved, Todd, after our one-room schoolhouse museum that we moved in 2000. We began the project in 2007, 2008. And people from throughout the tri-state area and beyond kept donating items for that schoolhouse museum. And then they started donating items that didn't go in the schoolhouse, and the schoolhouse museum, which was built in the early 1800s, then became, it was filled. And so we had the other building that we had used as a storage building for classic cars. But as we've gotten older, those have been sold. And so we thought, why not donate it to the foundation? And so we have all kinds of things in that Cornerstone Museum. It is rather a large one. It sits right on Highway 34, the Goldenrod Highway. And the Conoco Station, that used to be a Conoco Station, has now become a part of it's Conoco Station Museum, but it's become a part of the Cornerstone Museum. And it is our hope, we're working with our local tourism committee, of which I'm a part, our Dundee County, our state of Nebraska, to try to make that whole complex a visitor center within the next several years. But you see, we couldn't do that without our bathroom being ADA compliant.
Well, we're glad to help with that process through this challenge grant. Are you guys open with everything going on with COVID? Are people able to visit at this point, or what's their status?
We are not. Todd, like many museums across the state. In fact, I was reading that over 30, almost 40%, in fact, of our museums in the state have had to close their doors, and some of them will not be coming back because of the expenses. So they have had to close their doors until they get some more income coming in. So no, we have not been open. However, if somebody stops at our Haigler Country Cafe that's just right across the street, and if they stop there and they want to see the museums, as long as they are masked and one of us is home, then or one of our volunteers, we will gladly show them. With the project beginning in the Cornerstone Museum, it would probably mean that they would have access to the Schoolhouse Museum and the Conoco Station Museum. Until the project is completed, because whenever you do a project, it's kind of a mess.
Right. So I guess the good thing is that by the time the project is completed, hopefully we'll be getting to the point where you can reopen, and it will all be seamless. And the fact that you'll have the project completed, and then the building will be upgraded for visitors when they are allowed to visit.
We certainly hope so. We always have had, Todd, one large tumbleweed festival in the fall, and it was our only fundraiser for all of the museums. This would have been the 13th year for the annual tumbleweed festival, And we have our board of directors has just canceled because one of the big reasons is here in rural Nebraska, we've been very fortunate not to have a lot of COVID cases, but it has begun. We now have 12 in Dundee County, and people, they like their independence. They just will simply not wear masks and distance themselves. And the foundation does not want to be where we don't want to be a breeder of COVID. We are trying to protect our community. And we will be back with all of the services.
Well, I told you before we got started that I can't wait to, once the project is completed and it's safe, I will be out to visit Haigler and to see the museum. And maybe I need to add the Tumbleweed Festival onto my list of things to hit as well.
Yes, that would be an ideal time. All of the museums have always been open. With an open house at the Tumbleweed Festival. And so that's always been a moneymaker fundraiser for us as well. But because of people like you and because of some of our donors we are still alive and well.
That's good. So the Community Challenge Grant is not it's not set up or designed only to aid folks who are 50 and older, which is obviously a part of AARP's mission. It's universal. But do you see benefits to this project for visitors and residents of Haigler that are 50 plus?
Absolutely. Our community has gotten older. Stan and I were gone for 40 years doing our careers. We've now been back for 25 years. How fortunate we are. And certainly Haigler has changed. It has become much more multicultural. We no longer have an elementary school or a high school, but that's where the community center came in. That facility is now the Cornerstone Center for Community Service. And we still have young people. We still have old people, like our oldest living resident is 102.
Wow.
Yes, wow. And we still have an alumni association. We have much more multicultural. And if you counted all of our street cat assistance program kiddies, I think we probably have more than 150 people in the village. But yes, we are multicultural. It will serve all of the community, Todd. Anyone who comes to visit the museum, I mean, you really have to have a restroom that people could use, and especially if they're going to be coming off the highway. And all of our foundation is operated by volunteers, as nobody is paid. Most everybody is a volunteer. We are a strong volunteering community.
That's great. That's a perfect segue into my next question. I was going to ask you to tell me a little bit more about the Haigler Community Foundation itself.
Okay, Haigler Community Foundation is now entering its 7th year as a 501c3 nonprofit charitable foundation. It was organized in 2014. And the reason why it was organized, Todd, even though we had done many, many things and were a part of the Dundee County Community Foundation, we were getting so many things and buildings that the Dundee County Community Foundation thought maybe we should go on our own. As a Haigler Community Foundation, we visited with our Nebraska Community Foundation, and they suggested, because of the buildings, that we go on our own. So we started that journey, which is not an easy journey for anybody that has tried to organize a 501c3. But in 2013, our schools closed. The elementary school had been open for 6 years before the high school closed. So in 2013, the schools closed. We have a historic gymnasium built in 1936, and then the newer buildings was built in 1960s. And so the Board of Education came to Stan and I and asked if we would write a proposal to do something for that school facility, even though they could have sold it to many East Coast, West Coast. They had many bids on it and selling the facility, especially for the historic gymnasium, because of the way that it was built in the 1930s. But they came to us and said, if you can come up with something. Well, with both of our backgrounds, we wrote a proposal, and guess what? It was unanimously accepted that we try to turn that facility into a facility for the community. So that's what we did. That because we needed to raise $50,000. We had already raised $40,000 from the Schoolhouse Museum project. And so we started raising money, but people would want to have a tax deductible donation if it was a large amount. And the Hanson Charitable Trust out of Lincoln and Omaha, they are one of our biggest supporters, and they said they would help if we could raise the rest of the money. So we went to work raising $50,000. And guess what? We raised it. And so that was really the reason why the Haigler Community Foundation, and it's all volunteers. We kind of handpicked our board of directors and then got an advisory council. And we even have a Sunshine thrift store within the community service building. So that's what all of that facility now is.
That's terrific. That's terrific. One of the things I love about the Community Challenge Grant program is that they're designed to be quick action. They're not supposed to take a whole lot of time to from you got the award to you need to have spent the award and completed it. How soon will the project be completed?
Well, we have a deadline, that's been set by AARP. So we have our contractors. We have some of the supplies purchased. We're in the process of moving a lot of things in the museum that have to be moved, including 1800s buggies, including tractors that have been donated, farm-all tractors from way back when. And so we have begun, and our contractors know that we must complete by December 18th at the very latest, because I believe there's a report that's due December 18th, and our final report is to be due January 31st of 2021. So we have said before Christmas, it all has to be done, and we may not be able to have a grand opening until 2021. Has there ever been a grand opening for a restroom?
I'm sure somewhere we could find it, but I'm sure Haigler's will be the best.
I'm sure we can figure that one out. So that's what the plan is.
That's great. That's great. So my final question is, what would you like the folks watching us to know about Haigler and the Haigler Community Foundation? Because I suspect this might be the first introduction for many of our viewers to the community of Haigler.
Well, pictures show 1,000 words. And so I guess the best place to go, if you can imagine the Republican River Valley that I described earlier, sunsets and sunrises, a small little rural village surrounded by wheat fields, cattle ranches, corn, all of those kinds of things. But the Haigler Community Foundation, now in its 7th year. To find out more about that, we do have a lot of social media spots that you could go to. One is the Haigler blog, and again, all of these are run by volunteers. Another one is our Facebook page that is the Cornerstone Center for Community Service, and of course the foundation owns all of those buildings, and that's one of our primary focuses. You also could go to the Southwest Nebraska Tourism Group and look for Haigler, because Haigler is very much highlighted throughout all of Southwest Nebraska tourism. And I believe we are also on the state tourism for some of our things that we do, especially our festivals and things. So there are several sites that you could go to, or just look up Haigler Community Foundation.
Very good. Thank you. So we're getting near the end of our time, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today to learn more about the Haigler Community Foundation and the community of Haigler itself. Lenita, before we go, any final words for our viewers?
Well, just that we are extremely grateful, Todd, to AARP for helping us to stay alive and well during our COVID pandemic, and to help us to realize some of the I guess maybe dreams. Actually, communities, small communities, it takes a lot of hard work, and it takes a lot of years to make them livable and sustainable communities. And that's what, that's why Stan and I returned home, after our careers, was to try to keep Haigler a viable small community. And so thanks to AARP, you are helping us to continue to do that for all of our community and the people, the residents that live here in the Haigler area.
Well, I'm grateful that AARP Nebraska will be a small part of the Haigler community going forward as a part of this project. So thank you again. And again, thanks to everyone for joining us today. To learn more about the Community Challenge Project and other ones across the country, you can visit our website at www.aarp.org/communitychallenge. From there, you can also visit an interactive map that details all of the 560 Community Challenge projects that have been granted since 2017, and learn a bit more about the communities who are members of the AARP network of age-friendly states and communities. Or you can visit our AARP Nebraska webpage at states.aarp.org/Nebraska. Again, thank you to Lenita, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.